Welcome back to my kitchen and to my year of cakes. If you aren't familiar, this year I've challenged myself to make as many cakes as I can with the goal of 50. I thought it would be a creative, fun little thing for me to do. Try out different flavors, different combinations, different techniques, just a new skill to develop and learn. So if you're interested to see what I come up with this year, hit the subscribe button and follow along. This week I've been inspired by a cinnamon bun and I want to do a cinnamon swirl cake. So I'm thinking vanilla cake layers with a cinnamon swirl kind of situation in there. Hopefully that turns out. Cream cheese frosting. So a vegan cream cheese frosting, which I know can be a bit finicky, so we'll see how that goes. And then I was thinking about it. Just keep it simple. Keep it like that, right? That would be good. Maybe do a bit of a brown sugar cinnamon drizzle on there. But this morning I had a bit of a nostalgia moment and I was thinking back to one of my first trips to Iceland. So I'm part Icelandic, my grandfather's from Iceland, and I participated in the Snorri program a few years ago. So that's for people of Icelandic background to go back to the homeland, go back to Iceland, and you get to, I think it's a 6-week program. You get to learn the language a bit, learn some of the history, and then you get to spend some time living with some distant relatives. So I spent some time with a wonderful family out on a farm in Reykholt, Iceland. I just had this flashback to these cookies that I had. This was like 10 years ago. They're these little cinnamon roll kind of cookies. Not soft like a cinnamon bun, but really, they were really good. I just had this flashback to sitting in the farm kitchen, eating those with the little baby twins who are now, I think, 12 years old. Yeah, so I thought, I want those. I want to have that with tea and coffee, but they would go well with this cake and I could decorate the top of the cake with them or maybe around the sides. We'll see. But so we're going to make those. For some reason, I kept thinking of them as being like amma cookies, but when I was trying to find them, I found 2 different names and my Icelandic is bad. I think they are called Ömmusnúðar or Untitled. And my Icelandic's terrible, so. But yeah, anyways, I'm going to try and make those. I found a recipe, it's all in Icelandic and it's not vegan, so I'm going to try and do it. I'll show you what I do. I've got my scale, so I'm just going to measure out what they do and I'll make a vegan egg and use vegan milk. So let's get started. We'll make the cake layers. Okay, let's get started with our wet ingredients. So we have 2 cups of oat milk and 1 tablespoon of white vinegar. Going to mix this together and set it aside for it to make a bit of a vegan buttermilk. Moving over to our dry ingredients, I'm just going to do everything in bowls today and mix them by hand instead of a stand mixer because I'm going to use a stand mixer right after to try and make these cookies. My explanation. We've got the flour. I usually do 2 cups of all-purpose flour, but today I want to try doing 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour and then 1/2 cup of cake flour. I've got 1 tablespoon baking powder, 1 teaspoon baking soda, and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Mix these together. Okay, so it's been a couple minutes with this vegan buttermilk. So now we're gonna add in the rest of the ingredients. I add in 3/4 cup of white sugar, 2 tablespoons of vanilla, and a 3/4 cup of vegetable oil. And combine this. Now I'm going to add in the wet ingredients into the dry. Just make sure everything is well combined. I might grab a whisk actually. I have my prepared cake tins, 6-inch cake tins. You can use 2 8 or 9s as well, or even a 7. Do 7s exist? I'm gonna evenly divide the batter. And I have my scale, so I'm going to just make sure that they are equal. That was good. Okay, so we're gonna set this aside. We're gonna set these aside. I'm going to make the cinnamon sugar bits to swirl in. Okay, into my little bowl here, I have, I'm just coming up with this, so hopefully it works out. I've got 1/3 cup of brown sugar, 2 tablespoons of cinnamon, and 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil. I might need more. We'll combine this. I was thinking about using melted vegan butter, but I decided against it. Okay, it's a bit crumbly. I'm gonna add in 2 more tablespoons of oil, and hopefully that helps a bit more. Okay, I did 6 tablespoons of vegetable oil. Still thick, but it's got a bit of a run to it. So I have a feeling that, like, I could just clop it in. Maybe I should. I don't know. Maybe I should pipe it in. I'm wondering about the cake because the cake is pretty light. This is pretty heavy. I'm not sure how I should swirl it in. I could just clump it in there and then swirl, but I feel like I have more control if I kind of am piping it in there. So I'm just adding it to this little baggie. Cut the tip here and I'm just gonna swirl it in. I'll change the camera so you can see. Just going to cut the tip off a bit and let's just make a swirl. I just wanted to have a bit more control trying to get it into the cake. Okay, this was messy. You know what? I don't know what's happening here. So over this one, I'm just gonna sprinkle. We'll see how this turns out. Let's just do this. Okay, we're gonna add more to these ones as well. Okay, so that's messy, but now I'm going to just swirl these chunks around. We'll see how this turns out. All about embracing. We're learning. We are learning here. Okay, put these in the oven, 350 for about a half hour. Okay, now I've got the Icelandic recipe using Google Translate to help me out. I'm gonna measure things out. So 500 grams of flour. Okay, 500 grams of flour, 150 grams of sugar. I have 2 teaspoons of baking powder and the recipe calls for, I don't know how to translate it. But when I looked it up, it's like a baking ammonia, I think is what it's called. Anyways, I have substituted that for 1 teaspoon of baking soda and some salt. I think that'll work. Then 150 milliliters of milk, and I need 180 grams of room temperature. It's translating to margarine. I'm gonna use vegan butter. Okay, so 180 grams of vegan butter. Now, I also need a vegan egg, so I've gotta make that up. So I have this vegan egg replacer. Yeah, 1 tablespoon of this to 2 tablespoons of water. Okay, and I will whisk this together and set it to the side, and it just takes a minute. You can also use flax, ground flax as a flax egg, but I had that, it's ready. I need to ground some flax, so we'll just use this. Okay, grind. I need to grind some flax, not ground some flax. Anyways, and then I need, it says cream and cinnamon sugar. I'm gonna melt some vegan butter and then do brown sugar and cinnamon for that. Okay, let's translate the steps. Surprisingly, I can understand like a fair amount in writing still. We only spent a little bit of time learning the language. Some things just, I don't know, I kind of can get certain things. Funny Icelandic story. I never knew my grandfather had an accent until I went to Iceland. And I was like, oh, that's just not how grandpa talks. This is an accent. I don't know. His English was so good. So he just had a slight accent on certain things, or like there was ways that he spoke where when I was in Iceland, I heard other people speaking. I was like, oh, that's grandpa. Another thing, when I got there, I realized, oh, other people have big heads like me. Because my friends, like, I remember there's a picture that really stood out to me from university where I was standing with my roommates and I was like, they are so petite and their heads are so petite. Like they are such cute girls. And I got this big honker head. And when I went to Iceland, I was like, oh, people with heads like mine. Anyways, okay, back to the recipe. Let's see, put everything into a mixing bowl except the cream and sugar and cinnamon sugar, and mix with the K. That must mean something in the mixing bowl. and then you knead it. Okay, I'm gonna use the stand mixer. Now I'm unsure if I should use the paddle attachment or the dough hook. Let's use the paddle attachment. Okay, adding in the flour. Actually, I'll just add everything in. So we've got the flour, the sugar, baking powder, baking soda, and salt. I'm just gonna get this to have a little spin before. Room temperature butter. I'll get this mixing. I'll share a link to the recipe that I was using for this if you want to check it out. It's in Icelandic and I have changed it to be vegan, but if you want to see it, I'll put it in the description. Okay, and I'm going to pour the milk in a little bit at a time. Okay, definitely have a dough that's come together here. So I'm gonna make some space and then we're gonna knead the dough. Oh no. The vegan egg. Oh no, we forgot it. We'll add that in and see if I can incorporate it. My bad. I have this little mat that I like using when I'm rolling out any dough. It's also really helpful with Felix because then I can be like, okay, you sit off of the mat. Keep your toes away from the batter. Okay. Now I'm just gonna knead it a bit. Okay, I'm gonna start to roll this out. What does the recipe say? Oh, it says it'll knead the dough for a while and it'll soften. This dough is actually, I think it's pretty soft. I think I'm safe to roll it. It says 30 centimeters by 50. I like this. They have the measurements along the bottom. So I'm going to roll this out into a rectangle. And we are looking at it to be, well, it says 30 centimeters by 50, which is, what was it? 11 by almost 20 inches. Just check the cakes, they smell really good. We are rolled out. I am gonna patch this one little spot. You know what, I'm gonna give it a bit of a trim so that we have straight lines to work with. Alrighty, I'm going to melt some butter. Okay, I was getting my cinnamon sugar ready and it spilt. I've melted some butter, so I'm going to, oh, you know what? I see some spots. We're just gonna patch that in. We're gonna add this vegan butter. I didn't measure. It was like about 3 tablespoons of vegan butter I melted. Now I'm going to sprinkle on the cinnamon sugar and the cinnamon sugar. So it's brown sugar. I did 2.5 tablespoons of brown sugar and 1.5 tablespoons of cinnamon. We will roll. Start here. It's a little thinner on this end, so I'm just kind of pulling it out. I will cut them. I'm gonna get the baking sheet ready. Okay, now I'm just gonna cut them into their little cookies. Here we go. So I'll keep cutting these up. They're gonna go into the oven at 350 for 15 to 18 minutes. And next we will make our icing. Okay, Eric is down for his second nap. The sun is coming in very strong. Let's make this cream cheese frosting. Okay, starting off, I've got 1/2 cup of vegan butter. I'm just gonna let this whip up. Now adding in my vegan cream cheese, I'm using this DAIYA brand. I'm just gonna do the whole tub. Maybe I shouldn't, but that's what we're doing. Powdered sugar. Cup 3. And cup 4. I'm gonna scrape the sides. Look at that. How is this gonna go with icing the cake? I don't know. We'll find out. Give it a little taste. I think that's really good. I was wondering if I needed to add vanilla, but no. I'm not gonna add vanilla. I'm not adding anything else. We're gonna leave it like this, put it on the cake. Let's decorate. Okay, also, the cookies I forgot to show you. They came out of the oven. They are, I'm really enjoying them. Not sweet at all, so they're perfect for a cup of tea. For this cake, I think I do need to make them a bit sweeter. I think they're perfect for me, but for this cake, yeah, I think they need a little bit of something. So I just made a quick icing sugar. So I'm just gonna put that, and also, these ones were the ones I was cutting up and I showed you, right? They're big, and the cakes that I have are smaller cakes. So if I wanted to put a couple around the top, I used the leftover dough that I had, that I cut off the sides. I re-rolled that, and then I rolled them, so I made these smaller versions. So you can see that here. You can see the difference. So I'm gonna use the smaller ones to put them around the top, and I'm just gonna, like a cinnamon bun would have some icing on it. So we're just gonna dip it in a bit of icing. Yeah, just a light little, actually, I might thin it out even more so it's less than that. Yes, I think that's what I'm gonna do, thin it out. I'm gonna thin it out, then we'll decorate. Let's decorate this cake. You can see it kind of ended up at the bottom there. Now, one thing I can tell is this frosting is very liquidy. So hopefully this works. And the cake does feel quite, it's feeling quite oily. I'm gonna have to figure that out. Nice glob of cream cheese frosting. Another layer. Now I'm just gonna scrape the sides. I'm gonna put some on the sides, but I'm just gonna scrape it. And it's gonna be like a naked cake with some cream cheese frosting on the side. I know one of the things with working with vegan cream cheese for making frosting is that it just doesn't hold. I think it probably has to do with the fat content. That would be my guess. I just have to put some up top. And then honestly, this is all I'm doing. And I'll put the cookies on top. But this is all. So I'm gonna try and scrape off a fair amount of this. I'm gonna put this in the freezer for a little bit just to firm up, but that's all that I'm doing. And then I'm going to just put the cookies on top. Looks pretty good. This ended up being in the freezer for a while because Eric woke up, and then I had it in there and I had to deal with him. So we are going to just add on the little cookies. Okay, now I'm going to cut into it. Now this cream cheese frosting did get a little slippery. I'll have to figure out how to make it a bit firmer in the future, but let's try a slice. I'll take this off. Let's see, how did this come out? So the swirl kind of just ended up going to the bottom, which I thought about afterwards that might end up happening because the batter was feeling very liquidy today. Let's try some. I'm thinking about it. Okay, some thoughts. Not my best. It's still good. Non-vegan cream cheese frosting, it can hold its shape a bit better. This is quite, when it isn't frozen, it is quite wet. So maybe I'll have to do some more research into that. I looked up some recipes and I thought that this would work out. It did, it tastes good. It just doesn't hold, like it doesn't hold as strongly as I would want it to. But I know that that's an issue when it comes to vegan cream cheese. It tastes good though. For me personally, the cinnamon, it's not really coming through too strongly for me in this cake. It's subtle. With this recipe, I could tell that my vanilla cake recipe was a bit runny. So I think I want to try out some different recipes on my vanilla cake and figure out what it is like, if I do like that. This is good though. Yeah, I don't know. I like this. It's just not my best. And I want to try, I already have some ideas of how to improve this for next time. You could use a fork when you eat too, but I'm picking it apart. The swirl in the cake layers didn't really happen, and I had the thought it wasn't going to work out when I added it into the, well, firstly, I had the thought it wouldn't work out when I added the cake batter into the tins because it was so liquidy. I don't know why it was more liquidy this time than normal. Maybe it wasn't. You can hear Eric with Matthew. He's so chatty these days. Like it's, I don't know, 9 months have hit and his teeth came out and now he's like chatting all the time. It's adorable. It's so much fun. He's so happy. It's really fun. Back to the cake. And then when I added in that cinnamon swirl, it kind of just sunk. So that's kind of what happened here. So not the swirl I was hoping for, but still tasty. This frosting is delicious, and these cookies, these ones I have some icing on them. I've been snacking on these all day, and Matthew got home and he tried one, and I had described it to him. I said, they're not a sweet cookie. They are like a perfect, like what I would picture when you say a biscuit, a perfect one to go with tea. Like this is, they're good. I like them a lot. But more like one for coffee and tea. Well, that was fun. If I were to make this again, I'd definitely try some different things. Try a different cake layer. And the cream cheese frosting I'm gonna have to figure out, because there's a few different ones that I want to make cream cheese frosting for. So I want something to be a bit firmer, but popping it in the freezer, it's good. Now the cake is just feeling a bit chilled. Anyways, that's my cake for this week. I'm not sure what I'm getting up to next week, so stay tuned. If you haven't subscribed yet, hit the subscribe button. Join me on my cake journey. I will see you in the next video. Bye.